forum. I would ask that, as always, please remember to be recognized by the moderator before speaking. Turn on your microphone, state your name, and speak clearly 4 to 5 inches from the microphone. I'd like to thank you all for representing your neighborhoods and joining us here this evening. I think we'll start off with a roll call by the neighborhood. Hopefully somebody from the Office of Neighborhoods will do that since they have them all memorized alphabetically.
Captain John Moore? Yeah, he just said the opposite though.
Oh, you can go any way you want.
Upper Rattlesnake, Doug Grimm, present.
Ed Mulder, Riverfront. And David Michael Isaac with North Side and West Side of the Council.
Carol Garlington, Moose Can Gully.
Nick Shantz, River Road.
Mark McClemens, Franklin of Fort.
Mike Painter, Rose Park.
Ray Aiden, Farviews, Petty Canyon.
Teresa Connor, Lewis and Clark.
Mark Frost, Klein, Southgate Triangle.
Anna Moore, Harvey, Missoula.
Marsh Lodell, Miller Creek.
Great, we do have a quorum, I believe. All right, if we could just adopt the agenda. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda?
This is Doug Grimm. I move that we pass the agenda.
Thanks. Do we need a second for that, Jane, if we just adopt it en masse? All right, is there a second
Ray,
for the
second the agenda.
And Ray, 8 seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, and how about approval of the minutes for August 23rd? If you haven't had a chance to look at them, they should be in your folder. If nobody's got any changes, I would entertain a motion to adopt. Same.
Mark Frost, Southgate Triangle, motion to adopt.
Is there a second for adoption of the minutes from last month's meeting?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, the agenda is adopted. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Tom, did you want to sing a song or anything? You didn't have a school song? All right, okay. Seeing none, we'll start with our first presentation, which I believe is Mr. Haynes. Yes, ma'am.
For the record, I'd like to say that Katie Laney is here for the Two Rivers Neighborhood Council.
Great, thank you, Karen.
Okay, thank you. For the record, I am Mike Haynes with Development Services. So I am here this evening to talk about a city-initiated annexation. And in the presentation outline, I'll describe to you the annexation that's planned for the west side of the city, explain how this will provide both short-term and long-term strategic community benefits, and then talk about the public hearing process. So I'll start by talking about the Utility Service Review Committee. It's a committee that I sit on, along with some other senior staff members. And when folks who are outside of the city want to connect to city sewer and or water services, they come to that committee requesting the service be provided. At that time, the committee either requires that they annex into the city at that time, or more often, we request that they sign a petition to annex, and that can be exercised at the city's discretion at a later time. The city's been providing utility service, sewer service in particular, to the annexation area for many years now, and we're in a position to efficiently provide the full range of city services. So, state law allows cities to annex when they have signed petitions to annex for more than 50% of properties in any given annexation area, or for more than 50% of the total area to be annexed. In this case, the city has petitions to annex from over 80% of the 390 or so properties in the annexation area, actually closer to 85%. and that comprises over 85% of the total area to be annexed, with the exclusion of the right-of-way, which I'll talk about in a moment. So to describe the annexation area, it's approximately 3,200 acres, and it includes all of the properties owned by the Missoula Airport Authority. It includes the entire industrial park, with the exception of the tech district, and I'll explain that further in the next slide, and the Canyon Creek Village subdivision, along with the adjacent rights-of-way. Those are Highway 10 and MRL rights-of-way. So to explain the industrial park, everything that you see here is in the industrial park. The areas that are, the lots that are colored are the Missoula Development Park. So you've got the development park. The areas here in the middle that are shown in white are actually the Momont development site, which precedes the Missoula Development Park. And then here at the west end is, this is the DeSmet School, and just to the north of that is a property that's vacant but owned by the DeSmet School. I'll move on to the next slide and talk about the annexation area itself. So city limits are shown here in the red hatch mark, and the area to be annexed is shown in the gray. So looking at it going east to west, you've got some Highway 10 and MRL right-of-way on the east side of Reserve Street. And then looking at the west side of Reserve Street, you continue along those rights-of-ways, and they go all the way to Butler Creek at the very western end, which is right in this area right here. So obviously all the properties to the south of Highway 10 are owned by the airport. The properties to the north of Highway 10 are the industrial park, which I just described. You can see the technology park here in white is obviously excluded from the annexation, as I mentioned. And then Canyon Creek Village is in this location, and there's a self-storage facility. Immediately east of Canyon Creek Village is Canyon East, the Canyon East subdivision. So why are we annexing now? The city can expand efficiently into this area and provide city services. We believe the airport should be within the city's jurisdiction, with all public and private improvements permitted and inspected through the city. The tax increment financing district for the Missoula Development Park expired in June of this year, making way for the city to be able to annex the commercial and industrial properties in that area. And as I mentioned before, Canyon Creek Village and Windsor Park are already in the city, and they are pretty much seamless with Canyon Creek Village, which for some reason has remained in the county. So it makes sense that they should all be served by the city. So there are some zoning actions that are proposed along with the annexation. It's proposed to create a new aviation zoning designation that will allow aviation uses, obviously, as well as aviation-related commercial and industrial uses. And the airport does have, it already has some commercial and industrial users on their property and intends to have more. And we want to accommodate that. And there will be a memorandum of agreement with the airport that goes to City Council in the near future, and that's just to memorialize the mutual understanding of how this annexation will take place, the zoning, and deal with impact fees and some other questions or issues that the airport has. The second action in terms of zoning will be an overlay that will be assigned to the Missoula Development Park, as I showed you earlier, and that's to resolve some inconsistencies between the specific development park development standards under which the area has developed and our standard Title 20 standards. And those That overlay will address things like setbacks, they'll address things like outdoor storage and fencing and so forth, where there are some very specific standards as it relates to the development park, and those standards are applied through a design review committee that reviews new development and redevelopment in the area. And then finally, there's a Canyon Creek Village PUD that goes back to the OPG days, and that will be adopted by resolution at the time of the annexation. So again, the development standards will simply be continued and development rights will be unchanged. So here's the zoning map. You can see the right-of-way that I described is in the light pink, and that is industrial zoning, and you can see that a good portion of the industrial park will have that industrial zoning as well. The airport properties are shown in the light green color. That will be the airport designation that I talked about. The areas in red are in the industrial park, but they're commercial properties along Airway Boulevard and around that area. And there's also a small commercial property at the west end of the industrial park. And then finally, up in this area, I mentioned the De Smet School was here. We're proposing an M1R zoning district for that. It's an industrial district, but it does allow for residential uses, and the school has expressed some interest in accommodating residential development on that vacant parcel that's adjacent to the school. It's adjacent to the school, it's adjacent to the park and the baseball diamond there, so it seems like a reasonable location for some residential development to occur, but the remainder of the park is, well, it's an industrial park, so residential uses are not permitted. And then, as I mentioned before, this is Canyon Creek Village, and that's the Canyon Creek Village PUD that will continue. Benefits to property owners, development and redevelopment will be reviewed and permitted in the city. They won't have to go through that step of going to the Utility Service Review Committee and ask for services to be provided ahead of submitting development plans to the county for their review. The airport will benefit from the new A zoning district. It will permit aviation and aviation-related uses, and the airport's had an opportunity to look at the zoning that we're proposing, and they're supportive of that. The development park will be built out consistent with the existing development guidelines and design standards that apply. And of course, annex properties will receive all municipal services, police, fire, streets, and so forth, the same services that all of us enjoy in the city. There will be some cost to property owners. Like all other city property owners, they will pay city tax assessments, and we know that those generally account for about 28% of total property taxes. They will be relieved of paying some specific county assessments like rural fire and county roads. And the Missoula Fire Department has a better ISO rating than the rural fire department, so there's a potential for lower insurance premiums. Generally, we expect properties in the annexation area should see property taxes about 20% higher than they are today, and that would be reflected on the property tax statements that go out at this time next year for 2019. So taking a strategic look ahead, the intent of this annexation is to account for the fact that the vast majority of properties out here have already signed petitions to annex, but also because there's some development pressures in the area. So if you look at the red triangle here, this is just south of West Broadway. That area that has the asterisk on it is that's the property that Costco was looking at a while back. They are proposing to expand in their current location on Reserve Street now. And ironically, it's Summit Beverage who are moving to accommodate the Costco expansion that are looking at the site with the asterisk here. So They came to the Utility Service Review Committee last week asking for city services. We agreed, but they are required to annex into the city, as are some properties to the east that have recently developed. Abbey Carpet, Garden City Plumbing, amongst others. There's been quite a bit of new development in that area. So we'll be doing a combined annexation in that location. And then moving to the other triangle on the north side of Expressway, actually, we just have received an application to annex a good portion of those properties for residential development, and the remaining properties to the north already have city services, so that will be another annexation that is consummated in the next few months. So you can see there's quite a lot of development pressure on this side of town. State statute doesn't require that this annexation be contiguous with city limits, but you can clearly see that it is in the area between Canyon Creek Village and Canyon East, in the area of the commercial properties along Expressway. Down here, this is 44 Ranch to the south, and this is the Ranch Club to the south and west. So it's contiguous to the city in a number of areas, and you can see that what it clearly shows is this area west of Reserve and south of Broadway that we know is ripe for future development. It's the area that, if you're familiar with the build grant, the county has applied for the build grant to complete the county collector roadway network out there. They made that, applied for that grant in coordination with the city, and we should know before the end of the year whether we get that grant. Regardless, we know this area is ripe for development, and I think the build grant will accelerate development in the area, likely, but no matter what the time frame is, this area is a likely area. It's developable. Of course, it's close to the airport. There are some clay soils and some drainage issues in a few places, but it's flat land, and for the most part, it's highly developable. And the property owners in this area generally have expressed an interest in this land being developed. We've had some specific proposals that have come in, some early concepts, but some specific proposals to do mixed-use development, including residential development in this area. So this annexation really is a strategic move. So we've been doing some outreach efforts, of course. We held an open house on September 5th up on Airway Boulevard. About 50 citizens attended. We had display boards, of course, explaining the annexation area, where the properties for which petitions were held. We showed proposed zoning, the map that is very similar to the one that I just showed you. And it was an opportunity for us to answer questions and to take comments. The county planning staff were generous enough to join us at the open house, and I think between city and county staff we were able to generally address the questions they had. And they, for the most part, related to the four categories that I'm showing here. They were asking about the De Smet school attendance zone, which is unaffected by this annexation. There is the benefit, if you're interested, if you're looking for an expansion of the kids in De Smet school, is the potential for development of that vacant parcel right next to the school. There's questions about development impacts, and as I think you can see, we're doing everything to make sure that development patterns continue. There was some confusion about building codes and the thought that somehow building codes were different in the city and the county. They're not, they're state building codes. So I think we're able to answer those questions. And obviously there were questions about what city services these owners would be receiving, and questions about the impact on property taxes. So we have set up a web page. If you want more information on this, I would direct you to the web page. The address is here, or you can just Google 2018 ANX, or you can go on the Development Services page of the website, and it's the top link on that web page. We set it up in late August. It contains all of the maps and project information that we've been sharing with everyone who's interested. It's routinely updated, talking about public meeting dates as they're established, and there's frequently asked questions on there that have come from the open house and other questions that have been asked. And we'll continue to update that web page as we go, so anyone who's interested can get the latest information. So you may be interested to know the annexation would result in the physical expansion of Ward 2. We're estimating that would be somewhere in the region of 550 new city residents in Ward 2, and that's the impact on their population. And in talking to the Office of Neighborhoods, the annexation will result in the expansions of the Grant Creek neighborhood to the north of Highway 10 and to the Captain John Mullen neighborhood south, although that is the airport properties, so there's no humans that come along with that, just aviation-related uses. So finally, the next steps will be, we're planning on going to the Planning Board in October and asking them to make a recommendation on the two zoning initiatives that I talked about, creation of the Aviation Zoning District and the MDP NC overlay. Their recommendation will go to City Council for first and second reading of the zoning ordinance in November, and we're anticipating that in November the City Council will approve a resolution of intent and set the public hearing to annex and zone. And the zoning upon annexation public hearing we anticipate being somewhere in the middle of December, and of course the zoning is effective 30 days after the zoning public hearing, so the effective date of the annexation will be set to coincide with the effective date of the zoning. So that's it. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Mike. Mike Payne of Rose Park. Mike, are all of the currently developed properties in the area to be annexed already served by city sewer and water?
So the vast majority are served by city sewer and water. The main airport properties are. Some of the surrounding properties don't receive, they're not developed, so they don't receive city services right now. The airport board has expressed a willingness to allow the staff to sign voluntary petitions to annex. We don't need them. As I mentioned, we have way more than we need to do this annexation. There's a few other areas that we don't have petitions for. I think they're generally in that Momont area that I talked about, and I think many of those properties receive city services, but from so long ago, I don't think there was a policy in place at the time to get petitions to annex at the time or before they receive city services. And then I think the remainder, there's a lot of county-owned open space parcels and drainage parcels and so forth, and again, they're undeveloped, so we don't have petitions for them. So, but the vast majority, 85% of the properties we do have petitions for.
And as far as you know, there's no concerns from Public Works about capacity for water or sewer in that area? I know they put a good water line out there, but I don't know about the sewer.
No, it's a great question. Obviously, we have been talking to all the various departments at the city, encouraging them to talk to their counterparts at the county. We know that police and fire can serve the area. We're already serving the area with sewer and water, and there's plenty of capacity out here.
Okay.
Again, as properties come in and want to develop, I mean, the development park is mostly developed out, but there are still vacant parcels. People are still coming into the Utility Service Review Committee asking for connection, and we certainly have capacity. And then, as I said, everybody in this area will, receive the whole slate of city services that all other city residents enjoy.
Thanks. Any other questions for Mr. Haynes? Jane?
How many parcels are there in the airport area, and can any of them be sold?
I think there's 11 total parcels. I mean, in theory, they could be, but the airport has acquired these in order to protect the runway, the ability to build a second runway, which they've told us is unlikely to happen in the next 50 years. But, you know, they need these airport influence zones. They need control over those zones. So I think there is a very low likelihood, and they have the ability and the willingness to allow the right kind of development to occur. So there's no benefit to them that anyone can see in selling off this property. We think that they will continue to own these properties and continue to manage them as well.
Thanks. Any other questions? Great. Thank you so very much, Mike.
John, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Our next presenters are Mr. Zavitz and Mr. Wall. Oh, yes, ma'am.
For the record, I'd like to say that Anthony Joe with Captain John Mullen and Heidi West, the City Council liaison, are present.
Thank you, Karen.
Hi, I'm Tom Zavitz with Development Services, and I'm here to introduce this next project, which Garen Wally, our GIS analyst / planner, has been working on for most of the last year. And it's a project that we started about 10 years ago to track development in the we started out thinking about the urban fringe development area, but this wound up being development tracking for the entire city and urban fringe. So the intent in the beginning was to start to track development and then to think about ways that we might begin to guide development in the future. So with that, I'm just going to hand this over to Garen, and I'll let him describe some of the data that he's been analyzing.
Thank you, Tom. My name is, like Tom said, Garen Wally, and today I'm going to present the UFTA update. As Tom mentioned, the first UFTA was published in 2008 with the purpose of providing governing bodies with information for addressing growth in the urban fringe area within a regional context. The 2008 document used building permit trends to estimate that the area could expect about 15,000 new residential units over 20 years. This UFTA yearbook, like those previously, looks at recent development data, specifically for 2016 and 2017, but it also analyzes the previous 10 years of data and discusses observed trends. The UFTA area is the same as the Our Missoula growth policy boundary, which was based on the urban services area, shown in red. It's a little hard to see, but generally follows the outline here. It represents over 40,000 acres of land and currently houses about 93,000 people in about 43,000 dwelling units. For analytic purposes, this area was broken down into what we call regions, whose names are shown. The open areas are primarily open land uses where we do not expect to see too much development. The land uses show through pretty brightly in green here. Mount Jumbo, Mount Sentinel, the Waterworks Hills. So jumping right on in, this slide shows residential building activity for 2016. The city limits are shown in a slightly lighter gray than the background. And we'll get right into the statistics. There were 771 new units permitted in the city, 24 were in the county, for a total of 795 total new dwelling units. Of these, 221 were single dwelling units, 18 were duplex units, and 532 were multi-dwelling units. Of those multi-dwellings, 23 those 532 units were part of 20 projects total. They averaged about 27 units per project, about 40 units per acre. And I found it was interesting during my analysis to see that about 30% of all multi-dwelling residential development for 2016 was part of the Rome development on Front Street. Thank you. Yeah. Which is sort of intended for student housing. So of those major projects, of those 20 projects, the biggest were Rome at 162 units, Halling Farms, which is over in this area here in the southeast of East Mullen. Regions, not neighborhoods, I'm sorry. And then Cambium Place at 69 units, which is in our central region, right in here. 45 units of this, the total 795 were also TED projects, townhome exemption developments. Moving on to 2017, there were 769 new units permitted in the city, 88 in the county, for a total of 857 total new units. Of these, 276 were single dwellings, 30 were duplex, 544 were multi-dwellings. Of those, 28 projects compose those 544 units, with an average of about 17 units per project, 23 units per acre. And then, as the previous slide looked at the Rome, there's also the Sawyer in the central district, and that was 10% of development. Just another thing that I found interesting. Major projects included Halling Farms / Tolfson Apartments for 216 units. That's out in our East Mullen region. The Sawyer Student Living in our central region at 57 units, and then Potter Park Apartments at 38 units up in our West Mullen region. Again, 76 units this year were TED projects. Every UFTA we look at entitled lots. The entitled lot reserve is the number of expected remaining lots or units in filed and unfiled subdivisions or phases. Basically, if there's a future subdivision phase coming online, we count those units as, seeds of development, so to speak, where we should expect to see development. We estimate this reserve at 4,241 lots, which is down from the 10-year high of about 5,800. I think we saw that in about 2012. 546, or about 13%, are part of subdivisions that have not filed any phases. In 2016 and 17, about 118 entitled lots expired, while 52 were gained. And over the 10 years, we've noticed a trend of about 1/3 of our development occurring on these entitled lots. So we have this reserve of unbuilt subdivision land, and every year about 1/3 of our development occurs on those lands. And that averages out, since about 2012, the reserve has decreased by about 200 lots per year, and that includes expirations and new development. Over the past 10 years, a total of 4,905 dwelling units were permitted in the total UFTA area. Most significantly, the East Mullen region has 1,233 new units. The Russell the Reserve corridor has 908, and the Central region has 901. Those three have experienced the most growth. 4,542 units were in the city, while 363 were in the county. Of those, 1,830 were single dwelling, 158 were duplex, 2,917 were multi-dwelling, and 299, or about 6% of the past 10 years worth of development, were affordable units. This slide shows our development trends over the 10 years, broken down into type. We see that around the recession in 2008 to about 2010, the era of the recession and its effects, the development pattern changed from a majority of single dwellings to multi-dwellings. Almost 60% of our development annually over the past 10 years was multi-dwelling. And you can see on this chart as a majority single dwelling development, and in about 2010 it switches. We'll get some craziness going on here, but then it sort of levels out, and we're developing more multi-dwelling units than single dwelling units. Clearly they're both increasing. We're on the up and up. This slide shows our residential allocation map back in 2008 with the 15,000 units that we projected to see over the next 20 years. We broke that number up into the various UFTA regions as sort of expected units per the 20 years that we would see in these regions. The original allocation number on this map, number A value, is in the upper left of the cluster of 3 numbers. It never changes. So in 2008, we allocated 2,500 for the East Mullen region. This allocation was less of an allocation by definition. It was sort of an estimation of how many new dwelling units this region would experience. So again, as UFTA has progressed since 2008, this map will always show the same number A number. The entitled lots is that other value, the second number B value. For, again, East Mullen, that was 619. This number is a part of the allocation number. It goes up or down depending on subdivision activity within that region. So if a new subdivision comes online, it might go up. If subdivisions expire, it'll go down. And then the number at the bottom is the capacity calculated by zoning in 2008 minus new development. So as this map has been updated since 2008, we've chipped away at those numbers as development occurs in each of those regions. And this map implies that these allocations could occur in about any part of these regions. In the future, we'd like to see maybe a little bit more fine grain estimation. For example, most of West Mullen is in the airport where we won't see development, so it would be kind of nice to see, okay, in West Mullen in 2008 we expected 773 new units. Well, obviously they're not going to be on the airport runway. So this map, it looks at the previous slide's progress. The previous slide doesn't show exactly how many new units were developed over the past 10 years. The allocation map looked forward 20 years. We're now at the halfway point, so maybe we should expect to see each of these, what was developed over the allocation number should be about 50%, considering that we saw an economic recession in about 2008, 2009, maybe 10. They are lower than 50%. I think this is fairly normal. We also looked at some numbers. The original allocation may have been overestimated, so considering that, we feel that this is fairly on track considering we had an economic recession. And about, like the central region, for example, has 35%. We feel that that's somewhat on track. Interesting observations, the West Mullen developed its entitled lots faster than like Miller Creek. So West Mullen, we allocated, 773, and Miller Creek, we thought that maybe 1,300 new units would come on board. It's interesting to see that what actually happened, West Mullen developed faster, considering there are more available lots in Miller Creek.
Doug Grimm, Upper Rattlesnake. Looking at that last map, in the upper and lower Rattlesnake, and in the city and the county, how many housing units are left to be built on?
Of the original allocation? You could, if you wanted to use the 2008 numbers, the 315 units were allocated in 2008, and 25% were constructed. The difference would be what would be left. One of my future slides, we're going to talk about a looking forward process where we're going to look at these numbers, hopefully produce a new map, one that makes a little bit more sense, a little bit more straightforward, and might show sub-regions of these regions and its development capabilities.
Well, I had a realtor tell me that there's hardly any places to build in the Rattlesnake right now. I just wondered approximately how many building lots are left.
Sure. So on this allocation map, back in 2008, by zoning capacity, we calculated that there was room for 715. Oh, that's not true. It would have been 715 lots plus the past 10 years of development. It looks like we've seen 80 new units built in the Rattlesnake in the past 10 years. So if you add 80 to 750, 795 would have been calculated in 2008. And per this, it's saying that by zoning, 715 units are left that could be developed.
Thank you.
Yep. Math on the spot.
I'm Mike Payne of Rose Park. So once a project or subdivision is filed, how long until that expires?
I think that depends on the subdivision. I'm not too
okay.
savvy on the subdivision technical side of things. All right. This slide shows the 10 years worth of data and the 7 years preceding it to show a bit of context, where we've come from, how we're doing. The other slide that I showed broken down into single dwelling units, multi-dwelling units, and their trends shows from 2008 forward. It shows the upward trend, and this puts into context, what we came from before then. So the next steps of this project would be to look forward. We've looked over 10 years worth of data. We can take our lessons learned and apply them to the next 10 years. The next iteration, we hope to consider improvements to our methods, reset and update base layers, underlying data sets. We would like to track townhome exemption developments versus subdivisions to see if they're taking the place of subdivisions and if they're competing in a way. We'd like to improve the usefulness of the residential allocation map to better locate potential development in sub-areas of the UFTA regions. These will help inform housing, annexation, and other planning efforts. This concept will be realized through what we're tentatively calling the opportunities map. The goal is to produce a map that shows the following capability where development can occur. We use the term developable lands, which is unconstrained lands physically, not in riparian areas or floodplain, not owned by government, they're in private ownership, et cetera. Then we can calculate the capacity for those unconstrained lands and look at where there is room for development, vacancy versus existing units, consider land use and zoning to calculate build-outs. And then suitability, which will be a new layer on top of the previously capability and capacity were considered. Suitability will be educated by our Missoula city growth policy. We have different goals and objectives in that document that say, place multi-dwelling housing next to grocery stores and other services. So considering those services on a map, we can look at where development should occur. And then you take all three of these variables, you put them together. Where should they occur? Where can they occur? And where is there room for them to occur? Should show development, not potential, but what we're calling opportunity.
Question?
Yep.
Is it just a goal or actually working on these maps?
Presently working on these. I have nothing to exactly show. It's all in tabular format right now. I'm going to run some calculations. We hope to get this opportunities map by the end of the year, maybe early 2019, but we're really shooting for December. And with that, are there any other questions?
Any other questions for Tom or Garen? Great. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Tom, did you have something else?
I was thinking about what Doug asked a little bit earlier about how many units, and when Garen says that zoning, the present zoning would allow another 715, you know, the ownership of the land probably dictates what's going to happen more than the zoning. I mean, a zoning, if a person owns a parcel that could take 2 units and they have a single-family house on it, and it sort of depends on the situation. So probably you would never see the 715 come to be, the 715 units come to be that zoning allows, because so much of it's built out. So as a practical matter, I think it would be quite a bit less than the 715. But of course, things are going to change. Zoning might change, and city might annex. So there are several other moving parts there.
That, again, was calculated in 2008, so it doesn't represent new annexations since 2008 or rezones. So those have gone uncalculated, too. Yeah.
Well, this real estate agent was trying to explain to me why houses are quite expensive in the Rattlesnake. And she said she can't find any place for people to build homes, and the land is almost all gone. And so she said that, you know, prices are going to continue to go up. The valley is filled up, and I just wonder if that was true.
Like Tom said, there's some social constraints to development. We might see that zoning allows for this, but because it's in certain ownerships, and at one point we were looking at, is it really likely to develop if there's only one additional dwelling unit allowed on a parcel? Maybe not. Maybe there needs to be more allowed for some, you know, an owner to have the impetus to do that. I hope that answers. A new calculation, a new map should look at what land and zoning allows for with current data, not 2008 data, and then to sort of not highlight each parcel, but groupings of parcels within these sub-regions or within these regions to show a little bit more developable land.
So Garen, is the information that you showed tonight, is that available on Development Services website, or will it be?
Sure is.
Great.
This link here will take you to our UFTA webpage.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Great, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Our next item of business, neighborhood project and reallocated funds. Does that go to you, Ms. Kelly?
It's a request from Franklin to the Fort.
Oh.
Can you pull your budget out, and we can just give a little bit more background? Franklin to the Fort generally has 2 meetings a year, and they don't usually have enough funds to cover it. They're one of the biggest neighborhoods that there is. So I worked with Chris Chitty to come up with a figure that looked like it would cover their expenses for this upcoming meeting that they're planning, and it looks like it would be $500. Más o menos would take care of it.
Where would I find my budget?
Oh, that's okay. You don't have enough money for another meeting. You need the $500.
Give us some money.
So and Jane, do you usually give a status of what the remaining reallocated funds are when?
Well, we
you get
have an
requests?
encumbered amount. We have about $8,500
Okay.
available.
So really what you need is a motion to?
Yes.
So is there anyone willing, Mr. Grimm?
Doug Grimm, Upper Rattlesnake. I move that we allocate the $500 to the Franklin to the Fort Neighborhood Council.
Is there a second for Mr. Grimm's motion? Thanks, Ray.
Great.
Any questions or further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Way to go, Mark.
Good looking out, team.
And is there business under Neighborhood Council and Community Forum, Jim? Special events? Okay. All right, we're up to staff reports. Thanks.
Okay, I go first. November and December, the community forum meeting will be held on the third Thursday of the month, not the fourth, the third Thursday, because of the holidays. And in December, there will be no community forum leadership team meeting because we'll plan that in November. The December meeting is a short business meeting, and then we usually have a party. We provide pizza. We ask all leadership team members and a guest to come, bring a little tidbit that we can share, and the fun part is we do a white elephant gift exchange. So think of something that would be fun to have a white elephant gift exchange, wrap it. We steal it from each other if somebody brings something good, and we get some very interesting things in the gift exchange. And I've discussed it very briefly with the leadership team, community forum leadership team, but we also have a little icebreaker, and what we do is I get a bunch of names of historical characters, cartoon characters, political characters, and when you come in, I put it on your back, and that's who you are, and you have to ask other people yes or no questions and try to guess who you are. And so we end up feeling sorry for some people sometimes, and we start giving clues, but it's all in good fun, and it's really nice. So the grants are coming up. I brought some copies if anybody is interested. I'm going to pass them around, neighborhood project funds. They are due on October the 27th or thereabouts, it says in there. They're for $3,000 each. We did ask for it to be included, a 34.1% increase in the budget. That did not happen. We haven't had an increase in neighborhood project funds for 15 years. They've lost 34.1% of their buying power, but it was a bad budget year this year, and we understand that, so we will come back again next year. Hopefully it'll be a little bit better, and we can try that. A number of years ago, I developed a plan to have a Citizens Academy, and I had everything kind of lined out in rough form, and it would be, let's say, on an 8-week, every Tuesday for 8 weeks, kind of like the Citizens Law Enforcement Academy. And it would cover things such as city government and city engagement, the 3 branches of government, creating the vision and making it happen, development services and MRA, keeping safe in Missoula, tour a fire station and learn about the police and fire department, and recreating and quality of life would be a presentation on the Parks and Rec, and also Department of Housing and Community Development. We would have something on public works, wastewater treatment plants, storm sewer utilities, streets, and Missoula water. Where does it all come from, and where does it all go? We would have neighborhood councils, and then we could have the Missoula County Public Schools come and speak to us. And these would be held at different locations, so it would be very interesting to go to Hellgate High School, the wastewater treatment plant, Station 4 of the fire department, and places like this. Missoula County Courthouse, we could talk about what does the county do differently than the city, and what are our joint ventures, such as animal control, health department. And then the last one would be all about taxes. Where do they come from? Where do they go? And we could have an in-depth discussion about taxes. So anyway, I kind of basically had this sitting on the back burner since 2014, and I was approached by, actually Heather Harp went and spoke to City Clerk Marty Rabine and said, this would be a great idea to have something like this. And Marty said, well, guess what? Jane has been working on it. Go talk to Jane. And so Gwen Jones and Heather Harp came and spoke to me. So I'm going to propose to the Community Forum Leadership Team next month that perhaps we could do something like this. And what does everybody think? Would you like to see something like this? And we would need like maybe one volunteer, one time, you know, for the 8 weeks. Anybody have any comments on this? Good, bad, and different? Pretty ugly? Oh, I see one thumbs up. Thank you, Nick.
I think it'd be great, Jane, yeah. I think I know some members of the leadership team that'd be interested, so.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I'll talk to the Community Forum leadership team, and I think we'll probably try to move forward on this. I haven't talked to, I see another thumbs up. I haven't talked to the mayor or any of the parties that would be part of this, so there'll be some logistics and planning and maybe some twisting of arms involved, but we'll see what we can get done. And let's see, what else do I have? I'm trying to work on a budget for Community Forum. That's a combination that I do every year of the of your regular budget to cover all kinds of things that we have: bus tour, outstanding volunteer of the year, tabling events, some new signs for our tabling events and things like that. And I will be presenting that to the Community Forum leadership team next month, and then it will come to you for approval in November. Karen and I went to Stories and Stones and Sunday Streets, and Karen, you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, we had a great time. It was, we had great weather for both weekends earlier in September. Doug Grimm was great in steering people towards our booth and getting, we had, was it 100 email signups for Sunday Streets and about 150 emails at Stories and Stones. Really enjoyed helping people find out what neighborhood they were in, and they were given stickers so they, as they walked around the events, they could see other people in their neighborhoods. It was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed it.
And we now have over 7,000 email addresses. It's paid off through the years to keep plugging away at it, so pretty soon we'll have everyone.
I have one more thing that I wanted to mention. We need more moderators for the community forum. We have Doug Grimm signed up to moderate in October. Jeff Stevens is for November, and Mark Foss will be moderating for December. I'm going to pass this around. Please sign up to do one of these months. Thank you. Marley?
My name's Marley Merchant. I'm new to the Office of Neighborhoods. I'm a work study student. I'm from Laurel, Montana. I'm studying communications at the university. I'm just really excited to meet all of you and see what you have going on in your neighborhoods.
And we welcome Marley, and she inputted all of those new email addresses that we just got to. Thank you, Marley.
Thank you, Marley. All right, our next item of business is our neighborhood council reports. Mr. Grimm, you want to start?
Doug Grimm, Upper Rattlesnake. I find the bear has left me a present on my lawn practically every morning the last couple of weeks. And I don't understand why, because they say, pick your apples. Well, I have 7 apple trees, and I don't know what happened, but I just have no apples on 6 of them and a few apples on 1 tree. And I've talked to my neighbors, and they say, for some reason, they don't have any apples on their trees either. But I guess they're wiping out and breaking off all the limbs on the pear trees in the rattlesnake. We were planning a meeting this fall, but we've decided to postpone our general meeting until maybe in the springtime. And I guess my closing comment is that Guinness holds the record for owning the most records. Thank you.
Ed Mulder, Riverfront. We had a leadership team meeting at the Dog and Bicycle Cafe on Wyoming Street on September 10th. We're kind of planning for our general meeting next week on October 3rd. It'll be at the Free Cycles on 1st Street West. We're going to talk about the Civic Stadium, the streets, neighborhood priorities. We've got some leadership team elections. There's a lot going on in our neighborhood for sure. Also, next week on October 2nd, we've got a streetscape design project for California Street, put on by WGM Group. It'll be at the Salvation Army meeting room on Russell. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Dave Michael Isaac. I'm with the North Side, West Side Neighborhood Council. And just a little card, you know. Vicki and I were new in the area. And we got this little card in the mail one day, and we're looking at it. And both said, you know, we need to go to that, meet some of the neighbors, find out what's going on in the neighborhood, you know. It was a real productive meeting. 80 people showed up at this meeting at a park. It was at North Side Park. And that's where I met Jane. And at the community forum, in my opinion, the meeting, this meeting was a success. It was very productive thanks to the efforts of Jane Kelly, the neighborhood coordinator. And so it turned out to be a great meeting with approximately 80 people. And Jane Kelly, she welcomed us all. There was some food served. And then Jane presented a history of neighborhood councils. Ethan Smith, as the Missouri Crime Prevention Officer, gave a presentation on Neighborhood Watch. There was a Q&A time, question and answer time. Jane gave a brief presentation on Smart 911. And Jane spoke about getting involved in city government and influencing decisions in her neighborhood. She also facilitated, now this really impressed me. She facilitated a neighborhood setting priorities, all right? And she asked the people to kind of present the issues that concerned them the most, you know. And she made a list of it on a big piece of paper. And she asked them, you know, she got a consensus, is this our issues you're concerned about? Everybody kind of consensus. Then she did something interesting. To me, it was so impressive. She gave us all a little strip of red dots, you know, peel off and stick. And she said, I want y'all to go up to the paper and put a red dot on the one that's the most important to you. Okay, so here's 80 people is cordially interacting with one another and putting the red dots on this piece of paper. Here's the results, okay? Traffic density, 28 votes. Working with the Poverello Center, 23 votes. North Side, West Side, affordable housing, sidewalks, and walkability. And there were 17 other received 8 and less votes. But, you know, the seat is 80 people. They're strangers to me. You know, we're new in the neighborhood. Just cordially just interacting and putting our red dots on this big piece of paper. So they prioritize the things that concern them. And that, to me, that's impressive, you know. And then the rest of it, Jane, we had 4 of the city council members there had a question and answer time. That was good, it's productive. And then the election of leadership team members. Here I am, I'm on a new neighborhood, but here I am. And then there was a question and time, it said city council members. There's no further announcements, no public comment on non-agenda items, and the meeting was adjourned. So to me, it was a very productive meeting, and this little card is worth its money, you know? That's all.
Sure. Kate Laney, Two Rivers. From what I spoke to Jane earlier today, I'm not sure we have any leadership members or team. Apparently they had a meeting in August. I wasn't aware of it. It sounds like maybe the email list needs a little updating. Out of, there are probably 20 homes in the development I live in, and maybe 5 people got cards. So I've been exchanging emails with Jane. I'm really interested in this and trying to figure out what purpose this serves and how it relates to the city, and maybe get some more people in my neighborhood involved.
Carol Garlington in Moose Can Gully, and we had one of those big meetings in June in Playfair Park, and then our team met after the training session on August 30th, and we went over the minutes of the June meeting and discussed the priorities and decided that we wanted to get a little further detail on what those priorities really meant to people. And so one of our new members is going to work on getting some sort of a survey that we can ask people in our neighborhood to give more detail about how exactly what the issues are with these priority items and what we can do about them. And then we had so many new members that we had to do new duty people, and so the co-chair for Moose Can Gully is now going to be Janet Van Dyke, whom you probably all know, and Ariel and Dave are going to continue as secretary and treasurers, and I'm going to be the community forum person with Betsy Weber as my alternate, and Jeff is going to do for the 39th. We kind of joined the 39th Street group with the Moose Can Gully because we're so close together and have such similar issues. And Jennifer Stevens is going to work on the survey. And then we thought it would be nice if we could collect somehow a list of resources so that our neighborhood people would know who to call in the city, for instance, if they have a pothole problem that they want to report or something else, just to make it easier for people to get at what they need to do. And that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Chance River Road. We recently had our general meeting at Garden City Harvest. They have a great facility in our neighborhood. So it was a great sort of indoor-outdoor space. We talked about the Special District 2 rezoning that's happening kind of along Reserve Street. There's a corner on River Road and Reserve that's being rezoned, and there was some concerns about that. They're increasing like the maximum density from 16 units to 21 units, and we have a lot of infrastructure like transportation problems in our neighborhood, so that kind of sparked some debate. Along with that, River Road traffic right now is particularly bad with the Russell Street construction. Folks are zipping back and forth really fast on that road, reports of upwards of 60 miles an hour. So Jane was super fast and efficient, and we now have a sweet digital readout sign that tells you that you're going too fast, even if you're not going too fast. So it's nice. And since this was brought up, I've started like driving exactly the speed limit, like really paying attention, and I'm tailgated the whole time. So I must have been part of the problem, but solution now. So that's nice, and big thanks to Jane for helping out getting that sign. I'm sure that it's helping out the speed problems. We got an update on the Russell Street construction, which is going along, and they've been really good about communicating, and they've come to all of our meetings, and so that's really nice. And it's progressing, and people are pretty nice about letting you in when you need to, and so far it's been pretty tolerable. Some of our citizens brought up the Reserve Street smell, which is still a lingering issue in our neighborhood. We had presentations from Elliott Mudd, from Mountain Water, and Mike came and talked to us about Neighborhood Watch. We had some great food from Notorious PIG, and that's all I've got to report.
Mark Clemens, Franklin to Fort. We just had our leadership team meeting on the 11th, which yours truly missed, so I apologize. I don't have a ton of updates from that. But I did just want to sort of highlight a couple fun and exciting things happening in my neighborhood. The Montana Rail Link Park at Johnson and South there is coming along very nicely. If you haven't been by recently, I suggest going by to see all the work that's been done. It should be fantastic when all said and done. I just walked by it this morning. Coming along very nicely, so can't wait to see that when it's all said and done. We also have a Habitat for Humanity build happening on Schilling, just off of Mount/14th there. It's coming along very nicely. From the outside, it looks almost done. I know the goal is to get folks in there by the Christmas holiday is the hope at this point. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, and they are currently looking for volunteers. So if you would like to volunteer or you know someone who would, I have that contact information. So just grab me afterwards. But yeah, those are the fun and exciting things happening in Franklin DeVort.
Mike Payne of Rose Park, we had our general meeting at Rose Park on September 9th, and we had some 60 or 70 neighborhood residents show up and share an ice cream cone with us and listen to some presentations, and those included Jane Kelly gave a nice spiel again on the origin of the neighborhood council system. Greg Gullickson from Mountain Water gave us an update on their efforts to improve that system. Mark Thane of MCPS, who's always been gracious about reporting to the neighborhood what's going on with the two construction projects MCPS has in our neighborhood. That's Washington Middle School and Willard Alternative High School. We heard from Jordan Lyons and Benner Davis, one of the neighborhood ambassadors. He's with the ASUM Rental Center and staff the neighborhood ambassador program. We also had 3 of our 4 city council reps show up and answer questions, which was great. I really appreciate that. John DeBari was out of town, but Gwen Jones, Heather Harp, and Jesse Ramos were there. We had leadership team elections and reelected our current slate of leadership team members. We had a brief discussion on neighborhood projects. And I swear I didn't ask Carol to bring this up, but I'm going to pass out our current Rose Park neighborhood resource list, partially because I have a hope that if you have other projects that you think would be great to add to it, that you let us know. The first part of this is neighborhood specific. It lists Jane and Karen, and then our current leadership team, but the rest of it's all intended to be something we can hand out to our neighbors so they know who to contact for specific issues. So if when you look at this, if you've got other things that you intend to add to yours, if you'd let us know at some point, that would be great. So I'm going to pass these both ways. Thanks. That's all from Rose Park.
Could I interrupt for a second? The sign-up sheet has not gotten around, so whoever has the sign-up sheet, please continue passing it along.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay. Ray Aiden, Farviews, Patty Canyon. Probably the latest development was that we had a great gathering of people to talk and work for almost 3 hours with Parks and Rec on design, interests, developments, ideas for both Whitaker Park and for Ninkpata Park. It was a really good session, and now it's back in the hands of sort of the planning group, but there was a lot of great input and a lot of sort of commonality amongst the people in terms of what their visions were for the 2 parks. So clearly Whitaker has got a more complicated terrain, so it probably will not become sort of have any sort of athletic or older child energy area in it, whereas I think Whitaker, with its playground that's designed for young kids, will probably remain that. So that was really good. And then we're planning towards a neighborhood council meeting in November, for which one of the things that will be, I think, maybe interesting to people is that we've realized that, thanks to Karen, that we are in the bear buffer zone up there in Farviews, and so we're going to have some discussion about that. And certainly everybody's all up in arms about the deer anyway, so there we go.
Teresa Connor. We had our Lewis and Clark neighborhood meeting at the Pavilion by Splash, Montana on the 19th of September. And in the last year, we have gone from 1 member to 8 members. Good for us, huh?
Good work.
Yeah. So our big thing right now is Bancroft Ponds. We're looking at putting in gravel walks with Morgan Valiant and if any of you have parks, you must know Morgan. And to bring it up to ADA standards, so people with disabilities can actually enjoy the park instead of falling in holes and getting stuck and stuff like that with their wheelchairs and their walkers and stuff, so they can now maybe come back to the park and enjoy it. And the other thing that was really highlighted the evening was the Sentinel High School problem with students parking in the neighborhoods and the trash that's accumulating from people going down the street and throwing things out their windows. So the school has taken to sending patrols out every day to pick up the trash, which is really nice. And they've been issuing parking stickers because with the construction there, they will lose 60 parking spaces at the high school. So they can't afford to put in more parking spaces because money wasn't allocated for that in the new building plan. I'm thinking maybe they should sell those parking stickers to the students and make some money and lay some tar out there. But, and then we also had the two council members, John DeBari and Jesse Ramos, and they came and talked to people. Jane, I don't believe you got to priorities that night, did you? Okay.
It got dark, windy, cold. We all got grumpy.
Yeah, I can see that. That was a long time. I'd be grumpy too. So we approved our bylaws, and that was the end of a delightful evening.
Anthony Joe, Captain John Mullen. We had our leadership team meeting this Tuesday, actually, on the 25th, over at Barnes & Noble. Two new members joined us because we had our general meeting last month, Gary and John. So we talked a little bit about duties. And then we also did a quick review of the general meeting that we had in August. Then we also talked about the annexation because that's really close in our neighborhood. And we also had, Jane also gave us an update on the England Boulevard project to improve the crossroad or the pedestrian crossing and whatnot. Should be done by November. And that's what we had. We also talked a little bit about over in Dublin Street, there's, in our area, there's a lot of apartments, but there's not really enough park area. So, so people, we had a neighbor that came in and talked about how they have like a little park that's just not sufficient for the number of people who are in the apartments. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Can I add something? Kathy Snodgrass, I'm sure some of you remember her. She came to the meeting and is considering joining the team, so that would be a great addition.
Mark Foss, Southgate Triangle. Okay, so today we planted 4 trees in our park. I had a guy come down from the 39th Street side, and he helped us out. It wasn't you, Jeff Stevens. See, I have all these Jeff Stevens jokes, and he doesn't show up. It just, I don't know what to do now. There's a whole list of them here. So, he was a friend of mine, and that's not you, Jeff Stevens. So anyway, we put the 4 trees in. The bike park's going in. It's going in really well. It's going to be great. The kids are like locusts. They're not there under the construction period, but, you turn off the lights, man, they're right there. There's like 12 or 13 or 18 of these things riding on this bike park before it's even done. So I stopped by I don't know if you guys remember where the bowling alley was there by the fairgrounds. So I stopped by there. They have a dentist's office there. And I said, hey, what's going in next to you? And all the ladies there said, well, it's going to be a big DQ, Dairy Queen. You know, and I thought, that's kind of ironic, you know, go to the Dairy Queen and then go to the dentist afterwards, I guess. I don't know. So we're having our general meeting on October 8th. You guys are all welcome to show. We're going to elect some new officers, or some existing officers are going to be re-elected, I imagine. Other than, It's at the Southgate Triangle Community Meeting Room. It's in the Southgate Mall. And you're more than welcome. I wasn't talking to you, I was talking to her. All right, so that's what we got. So anyway, you guys come, it'll be fun. I'm done. Ray? It's not that far away from you.
Hi, I'm Anna Mora. I'm part of the Heart of Missoula leadership team. Relatively new. It's been great to be a part of living and working downtown Missoula. Just a couple things from the last meeting, which was last Thursday, September 19th. There was 4 traffic signal boxes that were voted in, so that's going to be exciting to see. I'm a big supporter of the local artists in Missoula, and that'll be fun. And then there was also mention of, from Pam Udall, they're going to have some talk about the development and the vision for downtown Missoula, which I think is going to be exciting to see how that's going, and to be a part of it, and to know that we can have a voice in that and give our opinion on maybe what we would like to see for downtown Missoula, Heart of Missoula. The next meeting will be October 18th. Thank you.
Marshall Adele, Miller Creek. We're going to have our Miller Creek Neighborhood Council General Meeting on October 16th at 6 p.m. at the Cold Springs School Gymnasium. A few of the topics, we're going to have Jane Kelly discussing the history of Neighborhood Council. We're going to have Susan Renouve from the Neighborhood Watch give a presentation. Corey Aldridge for the Missoula Urban Transportation District to talk about the mountain lion, possibly, maybe someday, getting mountain lion service out to Miller Creek. And the Jeanette Rankin School is progressing quite well. And Christina Stevens, who is the Cold Springs and Jeanette Rankin principal, will be giving us an update on the school progress. I've heard rumors, so I won't even tell you what the rumors were. Because they say when the school is going to open, but I'm not holding my breath. But they're getting it done. Thank you.
City Councilor West, can you liaison for us?
Hi, guys. So, of course, a lot of things have happened in the last month. So many things. So the big thing was that on August 27th, we approved the budget for the new fiscal year. The biggest change that took place during the actual discussions on the night of the final public hearing, which, as you know, was a marathon meeting, and we were here until 2 in the morning. I will make sure to eat next time beforehand. Was that we added an additional police officer. So we added 3 new officers this budget year. Of course, there's always a lot of things that need funded and aren't funded. And as a result of that, we ended up cutting the pavement study that was supposed to happen this year to pay for the additional police officer. A couple other big things have happened in the last month. One was that there was a ruling by the Montana Supreme Court that made surcharges, or ruled that surcharges were unconstitutional. We've been applying those since, I think, 2002, if I remember correctly, in varying degrees. I think they started out at $5 and currently are $25. And we don't know exactly what that means for us. Obviously, they're not going to be charged anymore. And also, we likely have to refund all of those to each and every person that was charged them. And so that we'll have to see how the court advises we best do that. And this impacted pretty much every self-governing city in Montana, so Billings and Helena, and everybody has to, this applies to everyone, not just us. And then we also are having an emergency ordinance that there's going to be a public hearing for on October 15th. And what this does is it relates to whether or not you can carry weapons into voting locations is the best way to describe it. Currently, you're not allowed to, there is an existing ordinance, and currently you're not allowed to carry weapons into most voting locations because most of them are in schools or churches or places that are, it's already expressly prohibited to bring firearms in those places. But there are some gray areas where we have elections in places that are not specifically covered already. A good example is during the Lowell School remodel, that polling location was moved to the Burn Street Bistro, which is usually a restaurant. And there's no precise rule on whether or not you could bring a gun into a voting location. So it only, applies to those sorts of gray area situations. It just cleans up the language a little bit. The public hearing for that is slated for October 15th. And we would adopt it at the same time if it passes. I think those are the big things that have happened in the last couple of months. Of course, there's been a lot of, making sure all the sidewalks get paid for and all those little things that happen at every meeting. So, thank you.
All right. I'm supposed to ask if there's anything special you want me to talk about when I make report on tonight's community forum meeting on October 1st. Okay. The next meeting moderator will be Douglas Grimm on October 25th. I'd like to adjourn us. Can I use the gavel? Thanks. That was beautiful.